Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Aaron and I have a question for you. Now, I'm not going to waste too much time with a big introduction or small talk, so we can go ahead and jump right in so you guys can really get into learning some of the concepts that I have for you today. My question is, what are your goals? Do you have goals set? What is it that you want to accomplish? Did you know that an estimated 70% of US adults set goals each year, but only 8% achieve them? I'll say that again. 70% of adults set goals, but only 8% achieve those goals. Now, the good news is that so many adults are motivated to accomplish new things and to take note enough to set goals. But somewhere in the process, they fall short. Now, it could be lack of long-term motivation, it could be that proper steps aren't put in place, or it could be that they are setting the wrong types of goals. Maybe the goals aren't realistic for them. Maybe they're setting the wrong goals. There are a number of reasons that people fall short. Now, my goal today is to give you the tools to be successful when setting goals. There are so many things that could be considered when setting goals. But a key to remember is don't overcomplicate it. I'm going to do my best to simplify all of it for you. Now, there are three types of goals that I want you to consider. They are outcome goals, performance goals, and process goals. So let's break those down. Now, outcome goals are goals that focus on the outcome. I mean, it sounds pretty straightforward, right? I would argue that these are good for some people and not so good for others. It depends on what your intent is. For example, if your goal is to add muscle to your body or lift a certain amount of weight or maybe lose a certain amount of weight, the target would be your intended outcome. Now, if you set a goal of losing 10 pounds, that is totally possible. If you want to increase your squat by 50 pounds, that is something that with a little bit of work you can do. You can achieve those goals. Now, independent of some sort of setback, like getting sick or not being consistent with your workouts or nutrition, you are largely in control of hitting those goals. Situations where outcome goals might not always be appropriate are in competition. So let me explain. Suppose you are a sprinter in track or a distance runner. I'm a track coach, so I always like to go to the runners. That can be with a competitive team or recreationally, doesn't matter. The point is you're either a sprinter or a distance runner. So say you enter a race. It's completely reasonable to have a goal of hitting a certain time. It isn't, however, always reasonable to say that you want to win the race. Now, don't get me wrong, saying or thinking you want to win the race or believing you can win a race can do more for your motivation than some other strategies. But in terms of setting it as a specific outcome goal, that might lead to disappointment. Now, the reason is because you don't have any control over what the other competitors are doing. You can't control how their races are going. You don't have authority over their training plan or progress, and you have no way to impact their talent or skill level. Now, in that sense, you can run the fastest race of your life and still not hit your outcome goal of winning the race. As a sports psychology consultant and coach who helps athletes set goals, I don't always encourage setting outcome goals for that reason. But in the first example, where the goal includes a process where you can largely control, outcome goals can be great for motivation and helping you stay on track. If you're an athlete, like in the example I gave, you can by all means set competition or outcome goals, but I would caution you to do so with the realization that the end result could be out of your control. Now, the second type of goal I want to discuss is a process goal. Now, these goals are so important to the journey when working towards change. It focuses on exactly what it suggests, the process. For example, if a goal is set by an individual to lose weight, gain muscle, hit a PR on a certain lift, or hit a certain time in a race, there are steps that need to be put in place as part of your plan. If you aren't currently training or getting to the gym or practice is holding you back, a process goal might be to work out more consistently. As part of that process goal, you will want to be specific. So rather than simply saying you want to get to the gym more, the goal would be, for example, to go to the gym 2 days per week. If you already go 2 days per week and want to build on that, maybe you can set a process goal of getting in 3 workouts per week. If you have set an outcome goal, your process goals will contribute to your success in achieving those outcome goals. For example, if your outcome goal is to improve your deadlift by 100 pounds, your process goal of practicing your deadlift and doing accessory exercises 2 times per week will contribute to your outcome goal of increasing your deadlift. Now, the third type of goal is a performance goal. When I think of performance goals, I relate this to competition or personal competition goals. For example, a performance goal might be for a sprinter to cut a full second off the race time by the end of the season. Maybe you're a distance runner and you want to significantly cut your time down to qualify for a larger race. Another example might be a softball player who wants to hit over 300 for the season. If you're a volleyball player, maybe you set a specific goal as far as the number of kills or aces that you have during your season. If you've been following along to this point, you know you can see how these 3 types of goals interrelate. If not all 3, you can probably pick out 2 that could be combined to meet your larger expectations. So whether you're setting outcome goals or performance goals, adding process goals to your strategy will help you achieve bigger picture goals. Now, choosing an outcome, performance, or process goal isn't the only decision you should be making when laying out your goal setting strategy. There are 6 other factors to consider, and they are defined through an acronym that has become pretty popular when setting goals. You've probably already said it in your head or shouted it to the person sitting next to you, and I'm talking about SMART goals. The S in SMART stands for specific. Now, what does this mean? Make your goals very specific. In other words, don't simply say, I want to lose weight, or don't limit your goal to increase your deadlift. If your goal is to lose weight, how much weight do you want to lose? Do you want to lose 5 pounds? Do you want to lose 15 pounds? How much do you want to increase your deadlift? Is it 10 pounds over a certain time period? Do you have a long-term goal of increasing at 100 pounds? What is that specific number you want to hit? Maybe we can go back to the example of the runner or track sprinter who wants to improve their time. If you are a sprinter in the 100 meter, for example, do you want to cut your time by a half second? Do you need to cut a full second off your time by the end of the season? Whatever your goals might be, make them specific. In these cases, put a number on it. Now, the M in SMART stands for measurable. How can you measure your progress? Now, this might sound obvious to some, but if you have a specific goal that you put a number on, it should also be measurable, and you should be able to see your progress over time. For example, if you want to increase your deadlift by 100 pounds, what type of progress are you making? Throughout your plan or when you're implementing your strategy, you should be able to track your progress. If it's been a month and you still haven't increased your deadlift, what barriers are in the way? On the other hand, if you're making small incremental improvements, like say 5 pounds per week, you are able to measure your progress and you know that you are working towards your goal. But to satisfy this part of the strategy, make your goal specific with a number, and that will also make your goal measurable. Now, the A in SMART has had multiple meanings. I've heard aggressive, you can use action-oriented. There are a number of different directions you can go, but for this example, I'm going to use achievable. How achievable are your goals? What parameters are you putting in place to make these goals achievable? If you set a specific and measurable goal of increasing your deadlift by 100 pounds, but don't train regularly, are you setting yourself up for success? Is that goal really achievable? Moving on, the R stands for realistic. There are other schools of thought on this one too, but I really like to use the word realistic. Let's go back to the example of the sprinter. If the sprinter runs an 11-second 100 meter, it wouldn't be realistic to set a goal of reducing that time to 10 seconds. If you're on that level, you're probably running in the Diamond League, probably the Olympics. On the other hand, it might be more realistic to run a 10.8 or 10.7 within the span of a season. What about the example of losing weight? Losing 100 pounds in a month isn't realistic, but losing 10 pounds would be more realistic. Now, regardless of your goals, make sure that you're setting goals that are realistically achievable. As most of you might know by now, the T stands for timely, along with being realistic with a specific goal. Are you giving yourself a reasonable amount of time to do it? Like I mentioned previously, losing 100 pounds in 2 months or even 3 months isn't a very realistic goal. Now, this might be one of the biggest hurdles goal setters find they can't clear, and why so many fall short or maybe even completely in their quest. Also, always give yourself an appropriate and realistic time frame to accomplish your goal. Now, I want to add one more step to this acronym, and that is an additional S. Your goals should be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, timely, but I also want to make sure that they are sustainable. It's said that many people who make New Year's resolutions often quit within weeks of establishing those goals. One reason is that those goals are lofty, unrealistic, and not sustainable. Now, for example, all other parameters might be in place. Maybe you have specific goals that are measurable, but their process goals within their strategy are unrealistic. For someone who does not regularly make it to the gym or is not physically active, immediately setting a goal of going to the gym 5 days per week is not realistic or sustainable. It might be for a couple of weeks, but making such a drastic change is not sustainable for a long period of time. And I think that is what it comes down to for many people. Not all, but many throughout my experience as a trainer and coach have a ton of motivation at the beginning and set really lofty goals, and then they get sick and can't stay on their regular schedule, or they have other appointments that get in the way. Maybe they just get burned out too quickly by being overly aggressive with their goals. Being ambitious is good, but if your ambition isn't organized to set you up for long-term success, that ambition's no more useful than a winter coat in the summer. Now, maybe this will help. As you go through the goal setting process, I also want you to consider 3 stages. The first stage is preparation and planning. Now, within this stage, set goals in diverse areas. Now, people often consider only performance-related goals, but goals can and should be set in a variety of areas, including individual skills, fitness levels, enjoyment, and psychological skills. On the second stage of education and acquisition, have meetings or planning sessions to identify examples of effective and ineffective goals. Focus on one goal at a time. Unless you have considerable experience in setting goals, it is better to set only one goal at a time for the given area. Stage 3 is implementing the plan for the goal and leaving room for reevaluation. Now, goal setting isn't a perfect science, and sometimes the goals don't always work out. Constantly reevaluate your goals and your goal progress. If you need to, make adjustments to your goals. As a former recreational runner, I once set a goal of running 1,800 miles in the calendar year. Toward the end of the year, I suffered an injury, and in my reevaluation, I realized that it was going to be pretty unrealistic to complete the 1,800 miles. So I adjusted my goals to make them more realistic and set a new goal of 1,500 miles. While I was initially frustrated that I wouldn't be able to get to that 1,800 mark, my new goal was much more realistic. Now, regardless of what your goals are, make sure that you set specific outcome goals, performance goals, and process goals. Setting all 3 will help you stay on track. If you're struggling, remember that performance goals can be viewed as more specific goals, more specific outcome goals, I should say. Outcome goals can be tricky though, because sometimes they're out of your control. So even if you don't meet your outcome goals, you can still achieve your performance goals. Now within those, make sure to make them SMART. Remember, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, timely, and sustainable. If you were on the fence about setting goals, or maybe you had set goals at the beginning of the year and weren't specific enough to maintain the motivation, I hope this helped. I hope you're able to get something out of it. Just remember that your goals should be very specific, but keep the process simple and realistic. You can always adjust your goals. In fact, you should always reevaluate and adjust your goals. If you have a setback, readjust and make sure that you're hitting a realistic checkpoint, and then you can again adjust those goals to get back to the initial marker that you set at the beginning. On the other hand, maybe you made such great progress that you're ahead of schedule. That's not an excuse to slack off and take your time in getting to your end goal. You should readjust and set an even higher goal at that point. So again, I hope this helped. For more tips and information on this and similar topics, make sure that you sign up for our Human Kinetics newsletters and subscribe to our YouTube channel, as well as Human Kinetics podcast. A new podcast is released every week, and they are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, and the Human Kinetics website. Don't forget to also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, and always find the latest research in our Human Kinetics journals. So thanks again for spending some time with me today to learn about goals and goal setting, and best wishes for staying on track and achieving your goals.